How much does it actually cost to start an Etsy shop if you want to see success long term? The truth is, anyone can open an Etsy shop, but not everyone sets it up for success. Some sellers spend too much to the point of having and incurring initial debt, and some don't reinvest when they absolutely should. What separates struggling sellers from the ones who scale? It's not just time or sweat equity, it's knowing where to invest and where to save in those first 30 days. You don't need a huge budget or fancy equipment to get started, but you do need to be smart with your money and reinvest at the right times. So in this video, I'm breaking down the real startup costs I recommend, what you can skip, and the exact budget ranges I've seen work for hundreds of sellers, including myself. If you're serious about launching your Etsy shop the right way, this is the perfect video on how and where to start. When it comes to selling on Etsy, why Etsy in the first place? Why do I still recommend Etsy over other platforms? One reason why is because the barrier to entry is way lower than other platforms. By barrier to entry, I mean investment and approval process. So with certain platforms, there is a approval process. All of those setup things and those barriers, right? Things that you have to do prior to starting, that is a larger barrier basically to enter. Rather than with Etsy, you can start selling today. You can start selling the day that you start. So when it comes to Etsy's barrier of entry for investing to start on Etsy, so I have this PDF I'm going to share in my resources down below. I have created a guide to how much it costs and what are the startup costs associated with starting an Etsy business. You will see at the very bottom, I have a few categories on different budgets, and the least amount that you would need to set up a shop, let's say most lean strategy, meaning that you are trying to budget and spend the very least in starting an Etsy business. Given this is usually going to be a digital or print-on-demand business, so if you're handmade, the costs of starting up for handmade businesses is going to be a little bit higher because you have to pay for inventory, maybe a printer of some sort or some type of machine to get started, right? So if you're looking to do print on demand or digital Etsy business, this is going to be around the range of $20 to $50. And this is like bare minimum, probably not many listings. And you're maybe not really paying for other softwares associated, such as design software, or maybe a print-on-demand company's membership to lower the cost of production fees and have other perks, let's say. Standard setup, again, this is assuming digital or print-on-demand, that's going to be around $80 to $150. And then proactive launch. So if you are really investing into this, you're like, okay, I'm all in, maybe purchasing some samples to test out and see in person. Maybe you want to take your own product photos of some of your products. You're looking to pay for tools and other features. This is going to be around $140 to $250 to start. Again, just to kind of paint the picture of how much you should have when you're starting. When I started, I want to say I spent like $20 to $25 to start. I invested it in high quality image mockups. I paid for a design software. That's pretty much it because that's all I could afford. Now let's go over and break down the fees and what you can expect per the range of softwares and other things that you may want to add to your business in your first month in starting. And I'm going to go over the things you don't need and that you do need when you start, okay? So when you're starting an Etsy business, it's typically going to be a shop setup fee of $15 to $30. Now, given these are the amounts that I've heard through sellers in the past few months who have started their shops on Etsy, this fee can always increase or decrease dependent on what country that you may live in. And given, I will say when I began, so there wasn't a setup fee. This is based off of my data from sellers who I've worked with who have started in the United States. So again, this is more US specific, but I've heard Canada and other countries are in this range as well. The next fee associated is a 20-cent listing fee. This is charged every time that you create a listing. Now, I do have a link down below that is 40 free listings for opening a shop underneath that link. So feel free to use that as far as getting some free listings to just jumpstart your shop. And hopefully that will at least take out $4 or $2 to $4 of your initial startup fees. Let's talk about when you get a sale. Now, when you get your first sale, yay, congrats to getting a first sale. I know that's like maybe in a few weeks, in a few months for some watching who just started their shop today, right? So when it comes to every sale, we have the 20-cent relisting fee. There is also a 6.5% transaction fee Etsy will take. So let's say it's like $18 that customer pays. That is going to be 6.5% of that $18 will be taken from the amount of money that Etsy is going to deposit to you later. So keep that in mind. There is also a 3% processing fee. So this 3% processing fee does not apply to every single transaction, but if there is a processing, if it's not done by Etsy payments or maybe a different credit card or payment process, there is a transaction fee per payment processor. That number typically floats around 3%. Here is a optional cost. Now, if you are a print-on-demand seller, this is a optional cost for you, which is samples. This is something I recommend when you first start out, is maybe ordering 1 or 2 samples of the products that you've created with your print-on-demand integration or tool and software company that you're using. One thing that's kind of new in this year is taking your own product photos is really what I recommend. I don't believe that you need to take or order a sample of every single product that you have. Yes, that may help you in the long run, but I will recommend to anyone to have about 1 to 2 samples when you first start, because first off, you get to see the product in person. You get to feel and see exactly how it looks. And also, a lot of the times, I think a lot of print-on-demand sellers, when you are creating a design on monitor, designs on monitor almost always look different than how they're going to print in person. That can be embroidery, that can be just a direct-to-garment printing. So typically there is fading that happens. When it comes to other optional add-ons, there is other plans that you can add, such as Printify Premium or Printful Growth. So these are with the top 2 major print-on-demand companies. So if you're using print-on-demand again, you can pay for one of those memberships that essentially takes down your production fees. Now, I do have free trials in the links down below. So with Printify Premium, you can get 30 days free for using code HeatherXStudio in all caps in the wallet area of your Printify account. Highly recommend that. And then with Printful Growth, you can get 14-day free trial. Again, that's just going to knock down the prices of your production costs with either print-on-demand software. I personally have used Printify since the beginning of my Etsy business. I prefer it, I will say, over Printful, but I think there are still 2 very great companies overall. That is a optional cost again. But when you're first starting, you can get those free trials and discounts in your first month, and then you can always just cancel it until you may need it again. For me, when I was selling with print on demand, and in my experience in selling with print on demand, typically once you hit like 20 to 30 orders a month, that's when it makes sense to do a membership, because that's when it kind of pays for itself in a way. So just keep that in mind, that once you build that momentum in your shop and you start to see those sales come through, do the plans. I highly, highly recommend that. Design tool subscription. Now, this is probably the most important one and the one that I recommend splurging on your first month. And not splurging, but like I would pay for this if I were starting and that's the only thing I can invest in. Design softwares can go such a long way. And having a print-on-demand friendly design software is number one most important. If you're doing print-on-demand, if you're doing handmade digital, no matter either of those, you want to make sure you have a commercial use license with all the graphics you're using and then also fonts. With Kittl, Kittl is very print-on-demand friendly. So if you're doing print-on-demand, Kittl is going to be my number one recommendation to a lot of you. When it comes to digital sellers, so typically Canva is going to be a really great opportunity. I will say that recently they had some licensing terms and agreement changes. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you have that in your terms and conditions or terms and conditions of buying when a customer buys on your Etsy shop. Again, I do have a discount code in the links down below that these companies provide me. But again, that's just what you want to look into. Typically, these costs are going to float between $10 to $30 a month. When it comes to custom domain, custom email, I don't recommend getting a domain when you first start. Again, this is completely up to you, but when you want to get, let's say, a professional business email that says @yourshop.com, you need, in most cases, your own domain for that. So your own domain, it's going to cost usually about $5 to $20. Usually that's like a ballpark number annually. Sometimes that could be monthly. Business emails can float between a few dollars a month to $20 to $30 to even $100 a month, depending on what service you use. Gmail is going to be obviously more of the, I would say, budget-friendly option. I want to say currently for maybe 4 different email addresses with my support team and all, it's about like $10 to $15 a month. So again, very budget-friendly. Do you need this when you begin? No, you do not need this when you begin. So anyone who's watching this video, you don't need to pay for email or a custom domain. This optional, again, optional fee. Mockup photos. This is a very important one I'm going to talk about for a moment here, which is real life mockup images are going to cost you more, but they're going to go much further for your Etsy business, whether you're digital, handmade, or print on demand. I know a lot of handmade sellers that it costs a lot to pay for your own photography. I just said that really funny, photography. If you want to troll my chat, this is what I do in a lot of videos. Troll the trap. What am I saying? Troll the chat by putting photography. Put Toto in our chat down below. What was I saying? Oh my gosh. Okay. Photography for handmade businesses costs a whole heck of a lot. Okay. So photography, if you're doing professional photos and you're paying for a photographer nearby you, that might be $200 to thousands of dollars, right? To just get those professional commercial use photos from a professional photographer. This is where mockups come into play. And this is why I highly recommend getting real life photos, because again, they're going to sell your digital products, your print on demand products, and handmade products. And it's going to save you hundreds to thousands in just buying real life photo mockups. There's a lot of AI mockups on Etsy right now that are going to charge like 20 to 30 cents per mockup. I don't recommend those because typically, if you can tell that they're AI, your customers can tell, and that creates this distrust between the buyer and your products and your product photo mockup images. So I recommend purchasing real life mockup images. So typically those are going to cost you a few dollars per image. What photo mockup shops do I recommend? The real life photo mockup shops I've used that are apparel based has been Dolly Mocks, Goldie Mocks, Watermelon Mocks. I have used Moonlit mockups, Lennon Smith mockups. I think it recently changed in the wording, but those are the shops that I know take real life photos. So of real models or their own photos. They are not AI created as far as I am aware. Without further ado, if you like this video, if you want any of those resources I talked about, you can get those down below. I have my free print on demand crash course on learning what you should know when you are just starting. Again, I have free A to Z tutorials on how to start a print on demand and Etsy business. So besides that, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. I will see you in the next part of this series in the next video here. See you guys.